Okay, we're continuing on Luke chapter 12. So, if you remember last time, we go back in the Gospel of Luke in chapter 12. We have this encounter with the Pharisees, warning against their hypocrisy, and this warning, calling his disciples not to be afraid, not to be afraid of them, not to be afraid of the trouble that's going to come upon them, and not to be anxious about these things. And then it shifted in verse 13, if you remember, of chapter 12. We begin this discussion about possessions. When someone in the crowd says to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." And if you remember how Jesus responds to that man, what does he say to him? Does he sit down with him and sit down with his brother and say, "Okay, let's make this fair, everybody"? What does Jesus do with this man?
So why are you asking me? Why, who put me in charge?
Yeah, yeah, I'm not here to settle these disputes. And then he warns him. In fact, he warns. It's interesting. He warns everyone. He said to them, to the whole crowd, beginning with this man, warning against what?
Covetousness. Covetousness.
Covetousness. Yes. All covetousness, all kinds of greed and covetousness, and this clinging to possessions, that a man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. And he tells that story of the rich fool who decides he's going to store up everything so he can relax, eat, drink, and be merry. But then the Lord says, this is your last day on earth, and all that you stored is gone. All right, then we got into this whole do not be anxious. We had a great discussion last time about that, giving us several reasons for that. I'm going to mute you there, Jack. And he said, don't be anxious about these things, and instead seek first his kingdom, and all these things will be added to you. So that's where we pick it up now. And verse 32 to 34, we kind of continue on this discussion of our attitude toward possessions and how we think about them in a biblical way. So let's start there. Rob, let's see. Rob Roy, would you read that for us, 32 to 34?
Okay. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give to the needy. Provide yourselves with money bags that do not grow old, with a treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief approaches and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
Okay. So he starts off with that command, fear not. And then he does a couple things here that's very interesting of how he has them think about themselves. What's the first thing he says to them after that? Fear not. He calls them something that I haven't really seen him call them this before.
Little flock.
Little flock. When you hear that, what are you thinking of? A little flock.
The small, the regenerates are small in number. Is what I think of.
They're small in number, but what even that notion, a little flock. What's
They're
the
sheep. Sheep that should be following me.
okay? Basically, little flock. They are. We can call it a small gathering of sheep here. And I guess the question is this: why does he call them that here? What do you think he's trying to convey to them when he calls his disciples a little flock?
He's the shepherd, and that he'll take care of them.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Christ is presenting himself as is the shepherd, and the shepherd, as you know, he takes care of the sheep. If you go through that 23rd Psalm, I just think it's such a great exercise. You know, the Lord is my shepherd. And what's the very first thing he says after that? The Lord is my shepherd.
Thou
I
shalt
shall
not
not
want.
want.
Shall not want. What does that mean? I shall not want. We don't usually say that. What does that exactly mean? What does it mean to want?
If there's something that you need or would desire that's good for you, he will provide it.
Yeah, to be in want, you basically to want something is to not have it, and to long for something. But when the Lord is my shepherd, there is no want. There is nothing I'm lacking that I desire and I need. I am satisfied. So because the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And then that goes through. How do I find the still waters? Well, what does he say next?
He leads me. He leads me beside the still waters.
He leads me beside the still waters.
Hmm.
He, what is he? Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He brings me to green pastures and helps me. He brings me to them. He doesn't send me out to find them. He brings me to them and settles me in them. He brings me to the waters and lets me drink. He restores my soul. Everything is he does it for me. He does it for me. The sheep are helpless creatures, but they're cared for by the shepherd. He takes care of them even through the valley of the shadow of death. I fear no evil. Even in the midst of my enemies, he anoints my head with oil, and he sets a banquet before me in the presence of my enemies. He brings me home. The shepherd does all for his sheep, and I think calling them that just conjures up that image of, oh, that's right, we are helpless. All that we have, the Lord provides. Christ is our shepherd. And then immediately, he then says, not the little flock references his relationship to himself, but then he references their relationship to God, which is, how does he refer to God to them?
It is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom.
Yeah, God is your Father. And we're not talking about your Father in the sense that he's the creator of you. He creates all things. But in your case, he's adopted you and he intends to give you his inheritance. And he is pleased to give you the kingdom. And when we talk about the kingdom, what does that mean? That God was going to give us the kingdom. What is the kingdom he's giving us? Because honestly, I don't feel like a king just yet. I don't feel like a prince right now. But what does he mean that God will give us the kingdom?
Well, he's taking this world and bringing it back to him. And if you're part of that, you're part of his kingdom, even though around you isn't all part of it yet.
Yeah, yeah. This is the kingdom of heaven, or the kingdom of God's kingdom is the new heavens and new earth that are coming. In Revelation, was it 21 and 22? We have a description of the kingdom of God coming like a bride adorned, the new Jerusalem coming down. That's our inheritance. That is coming to us. Nothing of this cursed world is not ours. We are. This is our wilderness. The Israelites did not inherit the wilderness. They had to travel through the wilderness to inherit the promised land. Likewise for us, this life right now, this world right now, this is our wilderness. We're pilgrims. We're traveling through, and the kingdom that we're waiting for is coming, the new heavens and the new earth when he returns. All right, so given all that, fear not, little flock, then he gives a second command to them. So the first command is, look, fear not, because look, you're a little flock. I'll take care of you. And your Father is God, and the kingdom is yours. So therefore, what does he command them to do?
Sell your possessions, give it to the poor.
Yeah. Sell your possessions. And then he says, give to the needy. All right. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't think he means sell everything that you own, including the clothes on your back.
No, he doesn't demand that of people. We know, I mean, in one case, you have the case of the rich young ruler, where he tells him, sell all that you have, give to the poor, and then come follow me. But you also have the case of Zacchaeus. And if you remember him, What did he do? If you remember when he came to Christ,
Gave it, was it four or sevenfold? He returned everything.
he returned all that he defrauded of people, and I think he gave like half his possessions to the poor. So bless you. He didn't give everything, but he gave a large portion of what he had to the poor. So there's no the passage doesn't give you really a sense of how much you're supposed to give. It doesn't tell you that. That'd be nice if he just said give 10% of what you have to the poor or whatever. He doesn't give specifics of how much a person must give. It's rather, but there's two parts to it. So you'll notice it's not simply give to the needy. If you notice that, the first part is sell your possessions, and that's what I reflect upon that with you is why does he say sell your possessions? Why not just say give to the needy? Why does he say sell your possessions and give to the needy? What do you think about that?
Is he saying get rid of anything that possesses you?
Possibly, you know. I mean, yeah, what's the significance of selling your possessions?
Selling is a change of ownership.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you
I mean, you could give your possessions to the needy, but it's kind of still yours.
yeah.
But if you're selling it, then that's they're no longer yours. You've signed them away.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's interesting because it's not again, it's not simply give to the needy because that would be like, we give to the needy, we give money, we give plenty of money without after having to sell anything. We have extra income, we can just give that. But he makes a point of saying to them, sell your possessions and give to the needy. So there's a sense of it's not just about giving to help those in need. It's also about almost like diminishing your stake in this world, like selling off. Shall we say downsizing? Is that a better word to use here? There's a sense of like this is again, there are these two kingdoms here. There's this kingdom of this world and God's kingdom. And there are those of us right now, even on this call here, who are rich in this world. We have possessions. Look, if you're not living day to day, hand to mouth, if you have money in the bank, if you could survive easily with if suddenly there was a break in your income for the next week or two, you're kind of rich here compared to the rest of the world, where a lot of people are living really day to day. They don't know, but we are, we live in a great country, a prosperous country. God bless it. And we've been blessed to have homes, to have possessions, to do pretty well, and to have more than we need. And there's nothing wrong with that. The Bible even says that in Timothy. Paul says, if you remember what he says to the rich.
Well, I know he says God gives us all things to richly enjoy is one passage.
Yeah, I want to read this with you. I don't have it on my my thing right now, but in Timothy, if I can find it here, I think it's the end of First Timothy. I think it's chapter 5 or 6. He has a word for the rich. That's really helpful. I think it's 6. First Timothy 6. As for the rich, this is verse 17, because I think that adds some clarity to what Jesus is teaching here. As for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. They are to do good, and to be rich in good works, to be generous and ready to share, thus storing up treasure for themselves as a good foundation for the future. This is a parallel passage to what he's talking about here. And this is what I love about Paul is he takes Christ's teachings, which are really more proverbial. They're designed so that we can remember them. And he explains what what it means. He's not telling us to sell everything we have and to, who was, there was one, was it Francis of Assisi who did that? Sold everything, including the clothes on his back, and just like walked out naked to live among the poor. And he's not calling us to do that. He says here, for us who are rich, he says, for the rich of this present age, charge them not to be haughty, not to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches. So there is this selling your possessions is really, I think, an important part of this, where we are downsizing, and that breaks the power of possessions over us in many ways. When we don't need so much. We don't need the more we have, sometimes the more enslaved we become to these things. And whereas when we it's for our own soul's sake, even if we don't do anything with the money, even if we burn it, there is something good about minimizing your possessions, about getting rid of things, about cleaning house and just getting rid of things, selling your possessions, so that you don't set your hope on them, and you don't be like the rich fool who took all his possessions and kept storing them up. We don't want to become hoarders and those who are enslaved to this world. And that's what I've seen, by the way. I have family members and friends I've known through the years, as they've gotten, hoarding becomes a very strong tie for them, and it's so hard to break because all their life and memories are wrapped up in these earthly possessions that they have, and it becomes a traumatic thing sometimes. And
So I come back to what I said initially, Pastor, when you said, what does this mean? And I said, sell anything that possesses you.
yeah,
He can't certainly mean sell everything you have.
Yeah.
That wouldn't, because the scripture says he gives us things to richly enjoy.
Yeah.
So it must have some deeper meaning than what it has on the surface.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's why I say I love the Bible so much, because it attacks it comes at you from different angles. When Christ speaks, he always speaks in these ways that are just like a punch in the gut, a slap in the face, that really gets your attention, and they help you remember them. But he doesn't explain it all to you. What do you mean sell your possessions and give to the needy? How does that work? Paul, on the other hand, is a lawyer and a Pharisee, so he loves to explain what Christ is saying here. And he does that for us with Timothy. That there's no command to the churches to give away everything they have. But the command is for the rich. First thing is, beware. Don't be haughty. Don't get your hope. Don't put your hope in these riches. Selling them is actually a good idea, so that you don't become haughty and proud and putting your hope in them. And then he says, rather, they are to be rich. They are to do good, to be rich in good works, to be generous, to be ready to share. He says.
We actually get an example in Ananias and Sapphira of doing what he says don't do.
Yeah.
Yeah. They say, oh yeah, we sold it all. Aren't we great? Well, no.
Yeah.
Didn't. And they were possessed by some of that land or the possessions that they had.
Yeah. Yeah. Becomes a vanity thing. And this is an interesting passage too. Let me cut it up, bring it here, and sort of page break so we can see it all together on one page. But in the passage, and Paul's going to talk about it as well too, and so I'm going to reference here, that was 1 Timothy 6, so you can have that. So you do this, and then Jesus, and Paul will echo this in Timothy as well, gives you motivation for why we who have the ability to do this. He's not talking to everybody, because the fact is there are people he's talking to right there who don't have a lot, don't have much at all, and are not able to give. But those of us who are in a position that we can be generous, we can be good, we can sell things, we can give, without putting a strain and starving ourselves. And he gives them motivations for doing this. Why? Why? What should motivate the Christian to be generous, to even sell possessions and give to those in need? What does he say in verse 33? When we do that, what are we doing?
Gaining treasure in heaven.
Yeah. He says, in this way, why? To provide yourselves with money bags. But these are different kinds of money bags that don't grow old.
What?
With treasure in heaven that don't fail. Wait,
Yeah.
so yeah.
No, I was going to say, I think you may have just said, I'm not sure, but it's significant that that doesn't say sell all your possessions.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. As he speaks to the crowd there. But there's this, but notice how he frames it here. He gives them a motivation that is like, this is not a sacrifice when you sell your possessions and give to the poor. It's not a sacrifice. He describes it as it's an investment. This is your eternal IRA. When you give to the poor, you're storing up treasure in heaven for yourself. Now, I don't know what that means. I have no idea what the money system is in heaven and how that works. I have no clue. But he presents it as there is eternal reward in our behaving this way, in our giving generously. We're investing in eternal life. So someone described it. I remember hearing an analogy of like, just imagine in the Civil War time, there was a certain point in the war, the South came up with their own currency during that time. I don't know if you realize that. So they had their own currency. And while before the war happened, that currency could buy things in the South. Once the war was over, that currency was worthless. It was the dollar, US dollar now was valuable. So if you're a Southerner and you know that in 1865, after Appomattox and the war is over, that this money that I'm holding in my hand is worthless, well then, doesn't it make sense to maybe take that money and spend it now and buy things that will be of value when the new country is formed again, if you will? If you're thinking economically here, shrewdly, if you will, your money is going to be no good in a few years. It would be so foolish to just collect as much Confederate dollars as you can and keep it in the bank and store it up, because in just a couple of years it's going to be useless. It's going to be worthless. It's only been good for kindling at that point. And so it is with our possessions on this earth. There's a certain point coming when our wealth is no good anymore. Everything we have here, we're going to lose. Everything is going to decay. Everything is going to be taken from us. So think about the things that are not going to be taken. Think about eternal treasures, and that how you handle your temporary treasures. Jesus seems to be saying to me here that if I am generous with them, those dollars that are going to perish anyway are being invested in a way that will be to my benefit when it really counts. Now, again, I don't know what that's going to look like. I'm not sure how it plays out. But
well, we know there's rewards of varying degrees in the scriptures that says in heaven. So whatever that means.
Yeah, it clearly means something, because Jesus keeps bringing it up. So it's like, and Paul does talk about those who will build with sticks and with a faulty with and that gets, and they'll be saved, but everything, their works will be burned up, and there's nothing to show for it. They might be saved, but it will not be the same. So there is you know, there is real wisdom in that. And again, I think of it again like an eternal retirement account. I'm like, you know, were you seem like responsible adults here. Did you know? It might have seemed to your young friends it was a foolish thing for you to put a good portion of your money into a retirement account that you cannot touch. That just seems foolish. Why won't you spend it? Why don't you spend it now? But you're like, you know, I want to have a comfortable retirement. I want to enjoy my later years. And so I will sacrifice a little bit now for that. It's not I'm not losing anything. I'm just putting it away. And so it is with giving to the poor. We're not losing anything. We are actually laying up for ourselves eternal treasures. It's a it's a really interesting motivation for us here. And it comes down to this last question. What does he say, verse 34? Let's read that one more time. Um, Elizabeth, you got
Where,
that?
For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
Where your treasure is, there will your
Mm.
heart be also. And what does that mean? Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
the scary verse, I find.
Yeah. Yeah. Why is that scary to you, Rob?
Um, because we all want to be financially secure. We all have savings accounts and all that kind of stuff. And it's real easy to be consumed with administering those things and keeping them up to shape and everything, and drift away from being excited about the hope of the gospel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really scary.
Yeah. And that's a real even in the parable of the seeds, if you remember the soils, there's that one seed that lands in the thorny soil that gets choked out by the things of this world, all the possessions and the distractions of this world. But let's talk about that. Where your treasure is,
Where are you focusing your life?
yeah, will your heart be also. Now, Jesus has told us there are two places for your treasure, basically. What are the two places he gives that says where your treasure will be?
Here and in heaven.
Yeah, it's either uh, on earth, your treasures on earth, where moth and rusts consume, right? Or in heaven, that are eternal. He says there's your two choices here. Where is your treasure? Is it on earth or is it in heaven? What are you valuing? What are you cherishing? What is your heart's desire? Where are you fixing your attention and your heart and your mind? If it's on earth, you will be living a life, as he's been warning them against, of anxiety and of fear, because you know at any time your treasure can be taken from you, can't it? At any time, a thief can break in and steal. If your treasure is on this earth, your body can be killed and removed from you. You can lose everything at any moment. If your treasure is on earth, you have a life of anxiety and fear and trouble. Um, if your treasure's in heaven and all your desires are there, um, those are set and firm. They do not grow old. They're eternal. They're waiting for you. And though you may struggle right now, you kind of look at this life and would say, you know, see, I'm trying to think of the best way to think about it. So it's kind of like when I went to Africa the first time. There was a huge difference the first two times I went. The first time we went about 20 years ago, I'd never been on this kind of a trip before. I didn't know what to expect there. And so I packed two big bags because I'm going to be there for 2 weeks. And I had so much stuff because I didn't know it was going to be hot, cold, what do I need? I need extra things. Can I get the laundry? Can I do this and this and this? And I was packing it up, man. I had two big bags and a carry on, and I'm coming there, and my whole time there, so much of my time was spent trying to navigate my luggage to make sure I had everything with me. I'm moving from place to place. It would take me, it was just a stressful time, and I had all this baggage to carry around with me. Um, and then the next year, we decided to learn some lessons here. We were watching Rick Steves. Do you ever watch him? Do you remember him?
Yeah.
Yep.
His whole thing is traveling through Europe on a with a backpack, I think it was, just with one carry-on. So let's see if we can do it. And so that year, actually, I did it. I went with just a carry-on. I did all his tech. I learned all his techniques, the kind of underwear you carry with you, the kind of clothing that you can rinse and dry out, and everything. And
You could flip it.
yeah, exactly right. But I just packed so light, and it was amazing when I got there how free I was to go there. And we were like, okay, it's time to go. I go boom, 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 ready to go. You know, you hop on the plane, you hop off the plane. You don't even wait for your bags to come. You just hop off, you get right to your car, and you're just going. It was so freeing. And I'm like, wow, there you go. Traveling light. What a freeing experience this was. And I could do that because I knew, first off, that Africa was not my home. I'm just there to visit for a couple weeks. And if anything happened to my bag, I didn't care. I mean, it'd be a little inconvenience for me, whatever, for a little bit, but it didn't matter to me. All my important possessions were home. They were untouched, so it didn't really matter to me. And what a fool I was to bring so much with me the first time and to have to carry that around and worry about it all the time. And this now I was like just totally free. And boy, what a difference that made. Completely transformed the experience for me. I was like, that seems like applicable to this life, doesn't it?
Well, you had laundry. Turns out that I'm sure you had laundering facilities there.
Oh yeah, they were great. They were wonderful hosts. They let us use the laundry all the time. And but even if we were in a like if we had to stay in a little like a bed and breakfast or whatever for a few days, um, with Rick Steves' approach, we could just wash our stuff in the sink and let it hang out and be ready to go. But it was just
Traveling in this life is also very freeing. If you own a second home, a boat, a motorcycle, all sorts of possessions, it really consumes you.
doesn't it?
And once you start to get rid of those things, it is very freeing.
Hmm.
And it's I don't know, your heart is no longer attached to it. So
Yeah.
so your heart isn't there if you don't have it.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that freedom is so important for us. And I think that's why he says not just give to the needy, but sell your possessions, because it's about you know minimizing or just lightening your load. It's not about having live this life in not depravity, deprived of things, and but rather it's freeing you up. You don't need all these things. You don't need all these things. And even, just when I think about how much redundancy we have in our lives, the number of possessions that we never ever touch or look at or use, and this kind of taking up space and that kind of thing. It's something for each of us to reflect upon about how we can be more free and flexible with our lives, and able and ready to do good and to be rich in good works. So I should
This
give.
story kind of comes to my mind is Ebenezer Scrooge,
Mm.
that story of Scrooge, because he was so worried about his possessions and having enough money. And I see that one of my own kids who worries about not ever having enough money, but he doesn't enjoy life.
Yeah.
Because he works all the time. But when sometimes you have too much, you're so afraid of not having enough, you just it's an obsession to have to not, you can be frugal, but frugal to a fault.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
and life becomes no fun because you're worrying about not having enough money for tomorrow when you probably have more money than you know what to do with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the key part I don't want us to miss and remember is the ability to do this, to sell and to give, is understanding that we're going to be cared for. We are Christ's little flock. He will care for us. And that we have God our Father who is going to give us everything soon enough. So it's like with that really frees us to do these things. Because I think if you don't see yourself as his little flock, you're going to be like the squirrels and hoard all the nuts you can to get through the harsh winter, you know? And so, but the sheep don't hoard their food because they know the shepherd will take care of them. We're not squirrels. We don't have to behave like them because no one's looking out for the squirrels. They have to store it all up for themselves. So I have to say, my mom really was helpful in this. After my dad died, you know, she every time we came and visited her, she had us take stuff back with us. You know, she had boxes ready to go, whatever it is. Take this back, you know, bring it out. You know, you can have it or give it away or sell it or whatever. It's like she just cleaned the place out. And it just, I think that was the key to so much of how she can, you know, live without stress in many ways. It's like she's kind of, you know, unloaded so much of the things that had gathered over the years. And there's something beautiful about that. So it's inspiring me to want to just have another yard sale and get things going here. So I should have given this lesson before the yard sale we had. People would have given their attic treasures for us here. So, all right. So let's go from there to our next section. Jack, would you read that for us? 35 to 40.
Stay dressed for action and keep your lamps burning, and be like men who are waiting for their master to come home from the wedding feast, so that they may open the door to him at once when he comes and knocks. Blessed are those servants whom the master finds awake when he comes. Truly, I say to you, he will dress himself for service and have them recline at the table, and he will come and serve them. If he comes in the second watch or in the third and finds them awake, blessed are those servants. But know this, that if the master of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have left his house to be broken into. You also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect.
All right, so now this section here, so we just reference here, we talk about fear not, sell your possessions, and give to the needy. Provide treasure for yourself. I think this is connected to it because it also explains why the selling your possessions and giving is, he now says what? What's the command here? Verse 35.
Stay dressed for action.
Stay dressed for action. And keep your lamps burning. All right, let's talk about that. What does he mean there? Stay dressed for action. Keep your lamps burning.
Be prepared and aware.
Yeah. Be prepared. Be aware. Be awake. Keep your lamps burning. Again, that whole thing of keep your lamps burning implies something. When do you put the lamps out?
During the day.
Well, during the daytime, but let's say at night. When do you put your lamps out?
When you're going to sleep.
When you go to sleep. So we're going into the night now. It says don't let the lamps go out because you need to be awake. That's the idea. Keep your lamps burning is be awake. Don't go to sleep here. And so what is he
I think he means spiritually awake and spiritually prepared. You know, don't all of a sudden decide, okay, I'm going to live my life for me for a while.
Yeah. Yes. That's a good point. I think you're exactly right. This connects to here where your treasure is, there your heart will be. Guard your heart. This is spiritually prepared. Obviously, it doesn't mean it literally. You know, you're never allowed to put your lamps out at night. No, of course, these guys are to sleep. They're to get their rest and so forth, but they're to be prepared and be ready for action. To be unprepared, what does it mean for a Christian, a disciple of Christ, to have their lamp not burning, to have themselves not dressed for action. What does that mean in a spiritual sense? What does it mean for them?
Vulnerability.
They're vulnerable. That's the consequences of it. But what exactly is it? What does it look like when another Christian, let's say, is not ready for action? Their lamp has gone out. What does it look like? How would you describe it?
Square filling religiosity. God's on the back burner. It is not the focus of your life.
Yeah.
And enjoying the pleasures of this world that would not be considered appropriate by Jesus.
Yeah. So I heard a couple things there. We sometimes use some different phrases for it, being worldly. So you're just pursuing the things of this world, or nominal. Nominal Christians. What do we mean by a nominal Christian?
Lukewarm.
Lukewarm. Yeah. What's a not? What does it mean? Something is nominal. A nominal Christian.
Maybe they they just do the hour on a Sunday and 90 minutes, and they really don't interact throughout the week or help out and
Yeah.
do different ministries in the church by
Yeah. These are
helping.
Christians in name only.
Right.
They don't practice the faith. There's no seeking of God. There's no. I mean, I've talked to people who would say, "Are you a Christian?" And I'm saying, "Yeah, I'm a Christian." And I would say, "Do you go to church anywhere?" And they're like, "No, I don't go to church."
Yeah.
Do you ever read your Bible? No, no, I never read the Bible. I would never study it. Do you ever pray? When I need something, maybe, but and yet they still say, I'm really curious. It's interesting. You call yourself a Christian, and yet you don't do anything that
Mm.
Christians do. You don't connect with other Christians. You don't even know the commands of Christ, let alone obey them. There's no desiring, there's no discipleship there. It's kind of like a soul. It's like those teenagers who go to the Army Navy store and pick up fatigues and pretend to be soldiers. I'm
Mm.
like, but they haven't been to boot camp. They're under no authority. They just play. They're playing games. It's all a show. And so this idea is always a temptation for us to fall asleep, and many of us do that throughout our most Christians, I think, have times in their lives when we've just,
Sure.
kind of gone a little cold and a little distracted, and we're not taking the faith seriously, and we need a little boost. But we need a little somebody to kick us in the pants and wake us up. We just tend to fall asleep. But he warns them: stay dressed, be ready for action. Be like men, he says, who are doing what? Verse 36. Be like men
We're
who are
waiting for their masters.
waiting for their master to come home from the wedding feast. So he describes them as servants who are taking care of the house, and the master has left the house and has gone off to a wedding feast. And these wedding feasts, they can last for several days. They're not like our receptions where you go and you're home, by midnight or sooner, depending how old you are. But these receptions could last for, if it's a wealthy family, it could last for more than a week. It could go on, which is why, remember that story of the when Jesus turns water to wine. They ran out of wine, um, because it's a long feast. It's not something that just it's over that night. It's like this goes on day after day. And so this master has gone off, and he's wealthy. He has these servants, so it's probably a big deal. He's off, could be off for a few weeks for all we know. Um, but the thing about these feasts is you don't know exactly when they're going to end. You don't know when. It's not like an appointment that is set up where we has a definite ending point. That we know they'll be home by such a time. They don't know that. They don't know if it's going to go long, if it's going to be shortened. They don't know. He says you need to be ready so that when he comes to the door, they can open the door to him at once. ready to receive him without delay. They're ready to go when he knocks. And how great a servant that would be. But if you have servants who are like, the master's away, and we're gonna pretend like it's our house now, and we're gonna hang out and relax, gonna enjoy ourselves, and we're gonna trash the place like you see in those teenage movies. When mom and dad are away, it's like that's not where we are. We're gonna be good servants, ready to go when he comes, we'll be ready to receive him, no matter what.
But
I was just thinking of Jesus when I think it was in Gethsemane when he was praying and he had the apostles that were supposed to stay awake and wait for him or to pray for him, watch over him.
Yeah.
And when he was done, he came and they put their lamps out.
Yeah. They were asleep. Yeah. They couldn't pray for an hour at that time, right? Yeah, and it's interesting that that whole thing of when Jesus is then arrested and all the apostles flee, he tells them, he says, watch and pray lest you enter into temptation, if you remember. He tells them that. And they fell, and their fall happened. Peter's failure, in a sense, happened in the garden, not when the servant girl asked him, do you know this man? It's like he didn't watch and pray. He fell asleep. He was not ready. Well, he was tired. He didn't feel the urgency of the moment. He was not ready for action. Had he been, if he was ready for action, and prayed and stayed awake with Christ and prayed with him, kept his lamp burning, those temptations to deny him, he would have been ready for them. He would have been ready for them, as he would be later on. But his failure was in his preparation. It's kind of like a sports team. It's like you didn't practice all week, and then when the game time happens, you lost the game. In many ways, you could say, look, you lost the game before the game even started because you weren't ready. You didn't practice. You weren't ready for action. Here he's like, be ready for action. We don't know when the master will come. But he says to them, blessed are those servants whom the master finds awake when he comes. Okay. Those.
And I think that's the reason why it's so important to be in the Word and continue memorizing the Word, because then it's like you're putting on the breastplate of Christ. When crisis does come, you have the Word to fall back on.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And I would say, as we look at the context of all this too, what does it mean to stay dressed for action? And what has he been talking about this whole time? Where is the danger? How do we get ourselves ready for action? Well, the battle has been in these passages all about our possessions. And in a sense, it's like, who possesses who? Are you going to have your treasures on earth or in heaven? Are you going to take those steps to, treasure the things, the eternal things, and sell the things of this earth so that you can possess the eternal things? Are you going to give to the poor? Are you going to practice these commands, learn them, study them, learn them, put them into practice, apply them, take some real steps to get yourself so that you're ready for action? Again, like my trip to Africa, it's like that second year, I was like, now I was ready for action. I knew what I was getting into. I was ready for action. I was much more effective than my first year when I was just like so stressed out and anxious about all the things I had with me. But yeah, our studying the scriptures is so important in all of this. Our gathering together, our praying, our worshiping, all those things as well. So
Dressed for action brings up images of a soldier.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's interesting. Look how soldiers are treated in the military. How much are they allowed to carry with them? It's really the essentials only. There are no luxury items for soldiers. I think they did like in the war, they took like a cruise ship that was suitable for, let's say, like 1,000 passengers, and they refitted it to transport soldiers. And instead of 1,000 passengers, when they transported soldiers, it was like 10,000. They were able to just cram them in there. You ever see those battleships where they have bunk upon bunk upon bunk? There's
Mm.
like 4 high. They're just insane how much they know. We got to get as many of them over there as possible. It's like you have your foot locker. That's it. Everything you own is in that little box. You're a soldier here. We got work to do here. This is not the time to build homes. It's not the time to gather great possessions. This is the time for action, travel light, and to think of ourselves like that, I think is really important. Think ourselves as soldiers here, and how can we be in a better position going forward. So blessed are those servants whom the master finds awake when he comes. So he describes them as soldiers, and then he describes them as servants of a master that we have to give an account. What will happen to those who are found awake? What does he say is going to happen? Verse 37.
They're blessed.
They are blessed. And what does he say will happen to those servants who are blessed?
They'll be rewarded in the sense that the master will serve them, in a sense.
The master will serve them. Huh. And have them recline at table.
Makes me think of one of Carol Davies' favorite verses, the Zephaniah 3 verse that says that God sings over his people.
Yeah. Yeah, this is an interesting take on the master servant thing. It's completely flipped here now. So we see ourselves as servants of the Lord Jesus, but when he comes and finds us faithful, he doesn't treat us as slaves,
Right.
but that he himself serves us and treats us, in a sense, he treats us like family, is what he's doing here, because that's what the master of the house does. Is when you're a host of your house, you, like Thanksgiving, right? If you host Thanksgiving, you own everything, yet you are serving everyone, because you're providing the meal, you're serving it, you're cooking it, you're putting it on the table. It's a mysterious thing where in hospitality the owner of the house becomes the servant to the guests and treats them like they own the place in one sense. So Jesus speaks about how in our relationship to him is not like Pharaoh to his slaves, where he demands that we're faithful, and then if we do a good job, maybe he'll give us a few extra nibbles. No, he comes and he serves us, has us recline at table, as he's been telling them the kingdom is for us when he comes. We're his servants here, and when he comes, the kingdom is ours. Blessed are the servants. If he comes in the second watch or in the third, he finds them awake. Blessed are the servants. What's the second watch and the third watch? Do you know what time that is?
It's every 3 hours, right? Beginning at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, there's 4 watches of the night. So 6 to 9 would be the first watch. So 9 to midnight is the second watch, and midnight to 3 is the third watch. So the first and the fourth watch, the first watch there's still a little bit of daylight at the beginning of the watch, and the fourth watch, there's a little bit of daylight at the end of it. But the middle 2 watches, there's no daylight. It's pitch black as far as we're concerned for the second and third watch. So there is no sense of, in the first watch, we're still kind of awake, and the fourth watch, we're starting to wake up. But here, this is the time when you're really asleep, is the second and third watches at that time. And again, that's the day before electricity, so people are going to bed early. They're not hanging out till midnight like we do. They're they're going to bed like Rob does, right? Rob, they're in bed early.
That's right. So he says if he comes in the second watch or the third watch, or he says if he comes in the middle of the night when you're most apt to be asleep.
Yeah. So they are anticipating, okay, we need to be ready for the master. He can come home anytime. Again, it's a wedding feast. Wedding feast can end at any time. He could come in the day, it could be in the middle of the night, it could be who knows when he's going to come. But we're going to be ready for him because we don't want him waiting outside. We don't want our master having to wait outside in the cold. We want him, the doors are going to be locked and he's going to bang on the door and we need to be ready to open for him. And he will be so pleased if we're ready, no matter what time, even in the darkest times spiritually, when you think about the world, even in the times when it's the second or third watch, when no one's thinking about God, no one's thinking about Christ, the way New England has been for so many years, right? Even in the spiritual wasteland, we're faithful and we are his people. And we know that, and we're seeking him. We're ready for him. Or in the middle of the day when maybe a lot of people are coming to faith and everything is moving along great, and it's easier to be a Christian. There are times when it's a lot harder to stay awake. I know for New England has been a spiritual wasteland for quite some time, at least as long as I've been alive. I don't know if you guys who've been around a little bit longer than me have found it to be the same way.
Yep.
It's a pretty tough place, and yet we could say it's the middle of the night right now for us, but we're to be awake no matter.
I remember back in the 50s where Quinessett Baptist Church, every June on a Sunday evening service, they would honor those graduated from high school. They invited the school superintendent, the school committee, and they were all there. And that no longer happens, and that's sad.
Yeah.
It's every school committee member with their spouses showed up, the superintendent showed up, and it was the people they went to church and supported one another, and they prayed together.
Yep.
And whether they were members of the church, and even if they had a Roman Catholic background, they were still there because they'd been invited.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
there was a one of the nursing homes we used to go to. One of the activity directors, who was an much older woman, she said that the class song for her public high school class, the class song was "In the Garden." That was their class song, right?
Wow.
Yeah, I mean they would say the Lord's Prayer during school. Again, these are public schools. Everyone was going to church because there was nothing else to do on Sundays. Everything was closed on Sundays.
Yes.
There was no activities. All the stores were closed, the blue laws. And so everyone's in church. And those were times when it was like, all right, it was in one sense very easy to be a Christian in those times. Now it's like, it's a little bit harder, isn't it? And people sometimes look at you like you're crazy because you go to church on Sunday or read your Bible. But
yeah, I remember your dad would always gas up the car Friday night because even filling stations were closed on Sunday.
Yeah.
Restaurants would be open because many people may go out to eat after church. But I tried to explain this to my students when I was teaching high school. They had no concept. I said, because now you're 24/7, you can go shopping.
Yeah.
Well, people don't even know what the blue laws are.
That's true.
In my lifetime, I feel like things started to change in the late 60s. So when things got really loose and people had more freedoms. And, prior to that, I remember even my mother, she wouldn't go anywhere without a kerchief, and we'd dress up nice to go to church, and we had to wear, nice, we had to be more respectable. And the churches were always full. You'd have masses because I was going to Catholic church then, but they'd be in Latin or they'd be in French, and everybody went, even the kids, and then it just in the late 60s, it seems like everything just kind of started to go a little bit by the wayside. That's in my lifetime. I'm sure my mother probably had her own stories.
I remember as a child going to the post office, and men would wear hats even during the week. They would enter the post office and take their hat off. And it's just a different, and I think as far as a lot of changes came in the Roman Catholic Church after Vatican II, but things seem to go really downhill after President Kennedy was assassinated.
Interesting. Yeah.
And there was a song that said, "That's when we as a country lost our innocence."
Yeah. Yeah.
And then everything just went amok. And of course, the hippie movement didn't help any.
No. No. it
It's
didn't help.
just people just defied authority.
Yeah.
You know, people used to, in my day, you were petrified to go to the principal's office.
Yeah.
Not so much today, you know.
Yeah. No. No. It's true. It's true. And I think it's not. We can't help. There's nothing we can do about the times that we live in. These are just the times that we live in. It's like
Right.
the days on a clock, the hours on the clock. There are some hours when it's brighter, and there are hours when it's much darker. And these are hours of of our life in our country that are darker. I think they're starting to brighten up a little bit. Things are turning around a little bit in good ways, but still, it's like it's not for us to determine how bright it should be. It's for us to be awake and alert and ready for action, no matter what time of day it is, no matter what hour, what watch it is. Again, like some of the soldiers, they're assigned to do their watches, so they go for 3-hour watches. And some watches obviously are easier than others. The first one is a pretty easy watch to do, 6 to 9. That's easy. The harder ones are the 9 to 12 and the 12 to 3. And I think we've been given the 12 to 3 watch, you guys. It's a harder watch, but we got to watch it. We got to be ready no matter what. So there's no sense complaining. We just got to be faithful. And there's great reward when the master comes to serve us. Blessed are those servants. And he says in verse 39, "But know this, that if the master of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have left his house to be broken." Now he switches. He gives another analogy. So this is a separate analogy now. Before he is first he describes us as soldiers who are keeping our lamps burning, dressed for action. Then he describes us as servants who are waiting for their master. And now he's going to describe us as masters of a house that are guarding against a thief who would be coming in and being ready for that. Because the Son of Man, in a sense, is coming like a thief. And what does that mean? He's coming like a thief. He doesn't say it here, but he implies it.
You didn't expect it.
But all three are telling you the same thing. They're just different ways. It's like he's telling you 3 times: be awake, be alert, be ready for him.
Yeah. He's coming at a time when you do not expect. Which is why I think this is such an important passage, as we'll kind of close on this verse. That's why all the prophecy books out there that are trying to get you to think about the second coming of Jesus and when it's going to happen and what are all the signs before it happens. And this is important to get. It's like Jesus, whenever he talks about his coming, he uses this language. It's as an hour you do not expect. He comes like a thief, and a thief gives no warning. That's the whole point of a thief. He just breaks in. He doesn't give you any warning. He doesn't give you an alarm. He doesn't knock on the door and let you know I'm going to be coming in next hour. It's like he just shows up. And so
when Jesus was here, didn't he say it wasn't even for him to know?
Yeah. Yeah. Only the Father knows when it comes. When these days of judgment come, they come in a way. It's described as slowly, then quickly. It's like slowly in the sense that, Peter says, the day of the Lord is like 1,000 years. So be ready to watch the whole night. Be ready because it might take some time. But when it comes, he comes quickly, like a flash of lightning, so that there's no time to prepare when he comes. And so you just have to be ready, and you have to persevere in that readiness. So that's kind of how we go about this. It's like, it's not for us to count the number of red moons that have appeared in the last year or so, whatever it is, to chart the progress of the temple in Jerusalem and all those sorts of things. I'm like, no. To count the number of earthquakes and things like that. No. He comes when he pleases, at an hour he pleases. And so we just need to be ready. So let's break it right there. Any last comments or questions before we go? Okay, let's stop recording.